Hey everyone, it's time for another weekly reading vlog and I'm very excited about this one. I'm also a little scared because the last time I did a vlog like this, it was just draining. But I'm going to be reading 4 new thriller releases, which are 4 of my most highly anticipated reads of the year this week. I'm not going to go into detail about the books right now because obviously I'll talk about them as I read them, but I'm going to go through them really quick. The first is Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware, and The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. So those are 4 of my favorite thriller authors, and I'm just so excited to get to read these books. Again, sometimes reading too many thrillers in a week really gets to me, but I think because I'm so excited for these books, it won't be as bad. Hopefully, I don't know what the content of them will be. I do know the writing styles of all of these authors, and I know the basic synopsis of the book, so I think I'll be okay. But I'm going to be starting with Megan Miranda's Daughter of Mine, because that was the one that was released the earliest. That was released back in the end of April, I believe. And then we'll go from there. But I'm very excited, and I will come back to you guys with an update once I've read a little bit of Daughter of Mine. Hey everyone, I'm pretty far into the book, 230 pages in. And the gist so far is that there's this girl that comes back to town because her father passes away, and when she's there, all of these cars start appearing in the lake because there's a drought that's going on, that's been going on, like, each chapter it tells you, like, day whatever without rain. So all these cars are being found in the lake in their hometown, and everyone just thinks it's weird, but no one's really, like, that worried about it. And then something else happens that makes our main character suspicious of something bigger going on. And so she's starting to, like, put all these clues together about the missing cars and the other thing that's going on, and she's starting to ask questions, and she doesn't know who to trust, and she has, like, a very precarious relationship with her one brother, but, like, the other brother she's really okay with, but, like, even she's starting to, like, sense that she's maybe asking questions that he doesn't like that she's asking. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but it's very interesting. This is so far like my favorite Megan Miranda book I think I've read. And what I do like about her books is that there's always like a little aspect of romance in there. From what I can remember, every book that I've read by her, there's been like a slight romance subplot. And I do enjoy that because it breaks up the monotony of like the uncomfortable thriller parts of the books. So I'm enjoying that as well. This is a very interesting book. I don't know. Like, you think you know what's happening, but I'm like, it can't be that easy. So I'm very curious to see how this book's gonna end. I'm gonna try to finish this tonight. I am trying to finish all 4 of these books by the end of the month, and I don't have that many days left, so I'm going to be reading them pretty quickly. I'm gonna be trying to read them pretty quickly. I think I can get through this one tonight and possibly start Middle of the Night, but we'll see how that goes. So I will probably not update again. Thrillers are hard to update on because I don't want to like accidentally give something away, but that's the premise of the story, and then I'll come back with my reactions to the ending and we'll get into Middle of the Night. All right, I finished Daughter of Mine. I didn't want to put it down once I got to the last, like, I think what I had 100 pages or so left when I went to finish this, and it just picked up in pace so quickly. The character, like, I didn't know what was going on for like the big climax of it, because she was trying to throw you off, and it just, the way that it got wrapped up was really interesting, and I didn't really see it coming because she tried to throw you off so much right at the end. So that was really interesting. I enjoyed this. I'm kind of not 100% sure what I'm gonna rate this yet, so I'm not gonna say that, but I did really enjoy this book, and I will give you a rating towards the end once I've sat on it for a little bit. Definitely a very typical book for Megan Miranda to me. It followed her normal storyline. She loves to write these small town, North Carolina, Pennsylvania books, stories that just, they encapsulate family and they make you look at things differently, and there's always, like I said, those close relationships in there that you don't always get in a thriller. So I did enjoy that, and I enjoyed all of the characters in this book. There were ones that I like really hated sometimes parts during it, but you kind of understand a little bit more about them as the book goes along. So I really enjoyed that. So the next book I'm going to read is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This will only be my second Riley Sager book, but I really enjoyed House Across the Lake. It had a little bit of a different twist to it than I was expecting. If you've read it, you might know what I'm talking about. It wasn't something I really saw coming, but it was still interesting. And this is about, like, I think two like childhood friends are out camping in the backyard of one of them in this neighborhood one night, and they wake up and one's missing. So like 30 years later or whatever, the other one comes back to town because things are starting to like get weird again. I think that's pretty much it. And he then just starts to investigate what really happened to his friend that night. We'll see how that goes. I have not seen anybody read this yet, so I'm very excited. I mean, it just came out a week ago. Yeah, so I have not seen anyone read this yet, so I'm very excited to form my own opinion without anyone else's reviews like in the back of my mind. So very excited for this. I will update once I've read a bit. Hey everyone, update on Middle of the Night. We are following Ethan, who was the boy that survived the night 30 years prior to where this book is taking place, and his friend Billy was the one that went missing. And he is now back in town trying to clear out and sell his parents' house because they moved out of that neighborhood finally, and they are trying to kind of help him because he's at a hard point in his life, but also they just didn't want to deal with it, so they had him move in there. And all of a sudden, like, this weird stuff is happening at that house again. Like, his one friend from childhood lives next door still, so they're talking about weird things. And then his babysitter, Ashley, who he obviously grew up around as well, is back in town with her little boy. And there's just like all this coming out about their past and like what actually happened that night. And then there's a detective, I think Rajesh was his name, and he's the contact for Billy's case, but also was maybe more closely involved than people realize. And you're kind of learning that they're all keeping a secret about what actually happened, and if it could possibly be related to what happened that night. And more is coming out. Ethan's like obviously has survivor's guilt, and he's dealing with that, and that has impacted his life a lot and decisions he's made. And it's kind of really screwed with him even 30 years later. Like, he has trouble sleeping, and it's just all psychologically still messing with him. So it's very interesting. There's a little bit of like a aspect of the book that is leaning towards the thing I didn't like about, not didn't like, but that wasn't my favorite thing about House Across the Lake. So I'm not sure if that's just a common trend in Riley Sager's books. Like I said, this is only my second one, and I'm seeing a little bit of that theme trending again. So we'll see. But enjoying it. I'm about 150 pages in, give or take. I'm going to see what I can get through this evening. And then I will have the weekend to hopefully finish this book up, as well as the other two, which I should be able to do because I tend to read quite a bit on the weekend as long as nothing comes up. And I will update you all either a little bit later or when I'm done with this book. Hey everyone, so I finished Middle of the Night today at lunch at work, and the ending literally had me reacting out loud. Like, the girl that sits by me, she was like, oh my God, what's wrong? And I was like, nope, I was just completely wrong about how this book was gonna end. So it got me. I didn't see it coming. Like, it wasn't like a shocking, oh, that's what happened, but I did not see the perpetrator coming, I guess I should say. So, loved this book. I gave it a 4.25. It was just fast paced. I didn't want to put it down. I read it so fast. And I would have finished it last night if I wasn't so tired. I just didn't want to put it down. But so good. Definitely out of the two Riley Sagers I've read, this is my favorite. The next book I'm going to pick up is Ruth Ware's One Perfect Couple. And the synopsis that I understand is that this is about like a couple that goes on a reality show where I think it's called One Perfect Couple, and they're competing with other couples for a cash prize. And they're on an island somewhere, and I think people start dying during the competition. That's all I really know. That's all I want to know going into it. But Ruth Ware is one of my favorite thriller authors, so I'm very excited to pick up her newest read, I'm caught up on her. So every time she releases a new book, if I read it, I'll stay caught up. So very excited for this one. I really enjoyed 0 Days, which was that was her last release, I think last year. And it was so much different. It was like more techy and very different from like what I've seen from her. So this is more, I think, along the lines of what I can expect from her. So we'll see how I feel about this one. Hey everyone, so it's now Saturday. I'm not gonna get cute today, so just get used to this. But anyway, I got about 100 pages into One Perfect Couple last night. And this is interesting. It's definitely not going in the direction I thought it was gonna go in with like how they described the show that they're on in the synopsis. And what you're getting is like the timeline, like as things are happening, like from when they were asked to be on the show to them showing up. It's taking place in, I think it was Indonesia area. And then meeting all the couples, getting to this island, but almost every chapter at the end, you get like Mayday call, like transcript that's happening. I'm assuming obviously in the future, after this storm that's coming through, I think that they're talking about is going to cut off their communication from the mainland. So you do know that something bad is going to happen. Obviously it's a thriller, something bad's going to happen. But you're getting like little snippets of what has already occurred because of this tragedy during like the lead up to it, if that makes sense. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm almost to the storm. I wanted to make it to that part last night, but I just got really tired. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm still recovering from like the amount of socializing and like the amount of time I spent outside and just awake last weekend. So I'm a week in. This is what happens when you get old. You don't recover quickly, but I've been falling asleep very early this week. So I did not get a chance to get to where I wanted to, but I've got all day today to hopefully get through this and start the next book, because I do only have today and tomorrow until the end of June, and I did want to get this and the Midnight Feast done before the end of the month because I have another vlog I want to start July off with. So that's where I am with this. I will continue reading and update you all as soon as something maybe really exciting happens. Okay, so I have just under 100 pages left in One Perfect Couple, and I have a theory about what's going on, and if I'm right about it, I'm gonna be kind of mad because I had that theory pretty early on into the book. It would be kind of out of left field, but I just have a feeling that's where it's gonna go. We'll see, I'm not sure. Since we've last spoken, things have gotten deadlier because I did hit the storm part. I don't think there's any spoiler in that because I'm pretty sure that it says that there is death in this and it is a thriller. So I'm not saying who died, but there has been death. And that's where the mystery lies because they have their theories about what's happening. Their suspicions aren't something they can easily confirm. So that's where all of the question is right now, on top of the fact that they don't even know if they're going to be able to be saved from this island. So that's where we are right now. There are some parts of it that are dragging, I feel like. Some parts that I don't feel like are necessary and should have been in the book. Like I think this could have been maybe closer to 300 pages rather than closer to 400 pages, but we'll see. Maybe there's reasons for that that I don't know about yet. I will trust Miss Ware here with her writing style and her choices that she's making. I am enjoying it. There are just times that I feel like it's moving a little slow. So less than 100 pages left, hoping it is all fast-paced from here on out, and I will come back and touch base again when I'm done. So I have finished One Perfect Couple, and towards the end, I was sitting there, like I had to stop reading at one point because I was sitting there trying to think of what book it was reminding me of. And if you've read Alex Michaelides' The Fury, this is the vibe I was getting towards the end of this book. Not exactly the same, but it was the same. It was like same story, different font kind of thing, but it was still enjoyable. There really wasn't like a big mystery at the end. There were like things that were not consistent throughout the book, which made sense at the end, and that's kind of where the Alex Michaelides book came into mind, but not my favorite Ruth Ware, but that's fine. I still enjoyed it, but it did really have like heavy The Fury vibes towards the end. So this is probably sitting at like a 3.5 for me, which is a little lower than I usually rate her books, but I think the fact that it made me think so much of that book, and it's only been a few months since I've read that one, that's probably why. I mean, had I not read The Fury, I might have rated this higher, but the vibe was too similar. Again, not the same, but similar. And the storylines are not the same, but it gave that same type of a feeling. So, last book on the docket is Lucy Foley's The Midnight Feast. I'm very excited for this one. Most of Lucy Foley's books, well, her thrillers, because she has written like literary fiction-ish, I think, or like contemporary fiction books as well. I've only ever read her thrillers, and I've read all of them except this one. Her books tend to be a bunch of different characters that you're following and stories that take place within a small time frame, and like usually in like a one location kind of thing, and you're following all these different storylines and trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I mean, it's basically like a normal, like that's how thrillers are, but like if you've read The Guest List, you follow I think like 5 different characters in there, and you're getting all of their different perspectives on the event that's going on and then everything that comes out of that event. And it's kind of cool to see it from different perspectives. And typically all of the characters that you follow connect in some way at the end that you don't really understand until the end of the book. That's just the vibe that she gives, and that's how like the Paris apartment was. I think the hunting party was her, and that was kind of similar as well. I might be missing a book, but those are the ones that come to mind when I think of her books. And they all have that same very like Lucy Foley vibe, and I like that. I loved the guest list. That was probably my favorite. The Paris apartment and the hunting party were good, but the guest list it still ranks as probably one of the best thrillers I've ever read. I'm hoping The Midnight Feast has that same feeling because the vibe for this seems very similar. It's the opening night of the manor, and basically no expense has been spared. So you're following a bunch of different people. The founder, the husband, the mystery guest, and the kitchen help. And then the local police are called opening weekend because there's been a fire and a body's been discovered. Something's not right with the guests, what happened on the grounds of the manor in the past 36 hours, and who or what is the cause. 1000% Lucy Foley vibes, but I'm excited to read this. This is the final book for this vlog, so I will probably not finish this one today. Like I said, I will really try hard to finish this by tomorrow because that's the last day of the month, and I want to get this vlog up tomorrow as well. It is like so stormy out this weekend, and it's a shame because I think next weekend for the 4th of July is going to be very similar, which is sad because we have outside plans because it's the 4th of July. So, and in Western Pennsylvania right now, we don't have normal storms. For some reason, we're like Tornado Alley right now, so we have a tornado watch for the next 5 hours. So I will not be going anywhere. And I will probably be riding out storms for the rest of the evening because the actual thunderstorms aren't coming until after that. So it's perfect vibes for like a scary thriller. All right, I will come back to y'all when I've actually made it somewhere into this book. All right, so I'm about 100 pages into The Midnight Feast, and we're obviously getting to know all of our characters a little at a time. We have Francesca, who is the owner of the manor, I think is what they call it, and it's like a luxury escape for very, very, very rich people. And then Owen is her husband and also the architect for the manor and everything that they've been building there. Then you have Eddie, who is a dishwasher at the like restaurant that they have on site, and he also lives next door at the farm. And then you have Bella, who is a guest, and we're learning the most, I'd say, about her right now and the connection she has to that area, and maybe starting to get into why she's there. Not quite there yet, but we've definitely been learning more and more about her, I think, than anyone else, except maybe Francesca. So essentially, we're following their timeline leading up to the summer solstice, which is the night of the Midnight Feast of the opening weekend at the manor. But then we're also hitting like present time where like the incident has happened and detectives and cops and everyone are on site trying to figure it out. So we're only getting snippets of like what happened that night, but they're obviously being very vague about like there was a body found. Obviously it was in the synopsis, there was a fire. And then there's this weird thing about birds. Like her grandparents owned this house before she turned it into like this retreat, and her grandfather always warned her like don't upset the birds, and all the locals keep talking about the birds. And there's this guy that runs the local like trailer park that's like next door, and he just made a comment about like seeing the birds. I don't know exactly what's up with that, but I'm assuming it plays a huge role in this, or they wouldn't be talking about it so much. But that's just kind of where we are. We know something happens on the night of the Midnight Feast, which is the summer solstice, the weekend of the opening events at this manor house, and that somebody is dead, and we don't know how, we don't know why. That's where we are, learning more and more about all of our characters and their lives and why they're there. That's pretty much just a Lucy Foley book. So we'll continue on. I don't know that I'll update again because it's hard to update with thrillers, but we'll see. Hey everyone, so I just finished The Midnight Feast, so I'll start the closing out of this vlog with that book. So Lucy Foley's newest read, again, very similar to how she writes her books, with a lot of POVs, a small time frame, a mystery, and you're just trying to figure out where everybody fits into it. And this was probably my favorite one since I read The Guest List, which was the first book I read by her. This had the same type of vibe, but like the ending, she just buttons everything up so well at the end with like all of the characters in the story. And she did throw a little bit of a twist in there at the end that I didn't see coming, and she just kind of had me guessing right up until the last few pages. So really enjoyed this one. I gave this a 4.25, which is the highest rating along with another book that I gave in this vlog. So very much enjoyed this. There was a lot of twists and turns, and this was a very darker book. I mean, most of her books I think do have a little bit of a darker theme. If I remember, I haven't read The Guest List in a few years. I'd like to reread it, but my mother's had it for like a year. This was creepy, like perfect amount of creepy to the point where like I wanted to continue reading it, because sometimes that little creepy factor makes me want to finish a book faster, just because then it's done. But very much so enjoyed this book. Top 2 of her books that I've read so far. And before that, I read One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This was, again, an interesting read, but it had a little bit too much of a similar feeling as The Fury, I think. And since I read that not that long ago, that kind of, I think, impacted how I took the ending. And there was nothing here that was like that shocking or that big of a twist. It was just kind of an interesting like mystery story. So I gave this a 3.5. And I did enjoy it, but it was definitely not my favorite out of Ruth Ware's books. And before that, I read Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This was, again, that perfect amount of like creepy thriller vibe that just made you want to keep picking up the book to figure out what was happening. And I gave this a 4.25 as well. This is my favorite out of the 2 books that I've read by him, the other being The House Across the Lake. So I really enjoyed this one. This and then the final book I'll talk about were probably not the greatest books to read back to back, because they had a lot of like being in a house by yourself and having these creepy things happen to you. And when I'm alone, sometimes I feel like I get that same kind of creepy vibe. Like I question every shadow, I question every sound. And this book definitely gave that creepy, is something out there, is something in my house kind of thing. And I think that's what gave it that really like enticing thriller feeling. So I really enjoyed this one. And then I finally finished out with Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda. I believe I gave this a 3.75. If I gave it something else, I'll put it on the screen, but I think that's what I ended up giving this. Probably one of my favorite ones by her. It again had that creepy, somebody's watching me while I'm home alone, someone sneaking into my house feeling. And she actually did have proof in this that there was like, because there were break-ins and stuff going on, but that there were people breaking into houses, so that added to that like jump factor, I guess I'd say. The mystery in this was really fascinating. The family dynamics and the relationship in this were very fascinating, and very, very much so what kept the book going for me. But again, great read as well. So overall, I'd say that 4 of my top anticipated reads of this year went very well. I think it's going to be a while before I pick up another thriller, but we'll see. The next vlog I have planned is also anticipated reads, but they are romance and one fantasy. So I will get a little bit of a break. Definitely enjoyed this one. Definitely loved all of these books, even if they weren't my favorite. I did enjoy every single one of them, and I cannot wait for the next releases from all of these authors. So until next time. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. Let me know if any of these books sound interesting to you, which one out of the 4 you would be the most interested in reading, or if you have read one of them already, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.